Calls are growing for South African troops deployed in the Democratic Republic of Congo to return home. It follows deadly fighting with the M23 rebels, which left 9 South African National Defence Force members dead and dozens others injured. Let's speak now to the MK Party's Muzi Njingila, who is also a member of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Defence. Mr. Njingila, good afternoon to you. In fact, good evening to you.
Yes, it's evening already.
Thank you for your time. Your statement is quite clear, and I thought I would just give one sentence or two there before we continue our conversation. You say South Africa must not be part of the conflict. We cannot, in good conscience, continue to expose our soldiers to an increasingly volatile and unwinnable military confrontation. Even worse, our soldiers are not even fully equipped with the necessary hardware to be combat ready. That's very clear. What are you calling on the government of President Ramaphosa to do?
Maybe at first is to greet the viewers and also extend our deepest condolences to the families of the deceased members of the South African National Defence Force and the South African nation at large for losing courageous men and women committed to the ideals of maintaining peace and stability in the continent, but also participate actively in silencing the guns in the continent and the region. Yes, indeed, when we came into Parliament, the department on its own has its own challenges and issues. But these are not the only deaths that had occurred in the DRC. There are that happened last year, and we raised it with the committee, we raised it with the minister for the withdrawal of the troops because they are ill-prepared, they were not well-equipped, no intelligence support, they are ill-neglected. It's more like we are sending them into an ambush. And these are lives of South Africans that are required to work in maintain the mandate of protecting our porous borders.
Can I ask you a quick follow-up?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt your thought process. When you say you interrogated this last year when an ambush occurred, there was lots of talk about our military not being well equipped.
Yes.
What was the response from the Defense Ministry?
You know, it's always a diplomatic response, not necessarily giving detail as to what exactly is the problem. But we know what's happening in the South African National Defence Force. Over the years, there's been a budget cut. When we came in the 7th administration, already 51 billion was cut into the Defence Force. So the preparation, including the ammunition, the frigates, the South African Air Force, most airplanes are landed, are grounded. So the men and women there, they've aged. So we're looking into how do we rejuvenate the force in South Africa. But what we are saying is that the minister is not responding adequately to the questions that we've been asking. To say, if we don't have budget, then why do we take the money that we don't have and send troops to DRC to fight on a mission that we don't understand? On whose national or class interests are we sending these people to DRC? Very
quickly, do you know what the arrangement is? Because they are not there as South African peacekeepers or a South African contingent of soldiers. They are there as the UN peacekeeping mission. Yeah. Does South Africa have to pay or take money out of its own pocket in order to support their sustenance there?
Yeah. I mean, in the medium-term budget statement framework, the Treasury appropriated 2.1 billion into this mission, its Operation Tiba. So South African government pays for these things, but the UN also compensates to the African Union the monies that would have been spent, but South African government will compensate the soldiers on their own budget.
Final question to you, sir. The involvement of Rwandan forces, defense forces, it's quite clear, even based on what we have heard coming out of that UN emergency meeting. You say in your statement that there needs to be intensified regional diplomacy in order to end this.
Yes.
What do you think the attitude of the South African government should be, particularly towards Rwanda?
You know, South Africa, remember, peacekeeping on its own, it's about restoration of peace with minimal force, but also maintaining the mandate of the deployments. So, of course, we ought to look into the diplomatic means of resolving the issues in the DRC. And also partnering with progressive parties or progressive governments, like the ones that you're mentioning in Rwanda, to say, how do we have a peaceful engagement that will ultimately bear results that are not including any physical or hard confrontation. Yeah. But currently, it's a war zone, it's a battlefield. The M23 militia is armed with heavy artillery. So we can maintain peace and restoration of peace and also assist in the process of rebuilding the nation. But we ought to sit on the table and develop mechanisms and means also how do we assist and ultimately have or find mechanisms that are going to work and assist this process moving forward.
Muzinjingila from the MK Party, thank you very much for your time. Also a member of the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans.